Hey, everybody, this is George Rogers once again here with Be the Change podcast. And as always, I am so glad that you have joined me today, wherever you may be, whether it's in the morning, afternoon, evening, if you're at home, you're on your way to work, or you're just driving around. I want to thank you for allowing me to bless your ears. And if you're watching via video, allowing me to grace my presence in front of you today. There has been so much, as we know, going on in the world today and in our country in regards to, obviously, we continue to now get back into the regular day-to-day operations of our life as we've experienced the last few months with COVID-19 and the shutdown, and many of our states are starting to open up to different levels. And so we're dealing with that. And I do want to take an opportunity in a moment to address, obviously, the bigger news that has come forth with so many incredible. I have to highlight the positive. I'm a positive thinking guy, and I understand there's always something negative, but that's life, right? Whenever we have an opportunity to believe for something good to happen, opposition will always come towards us, and we have to make sure that we are responding and reacting to that opposition accordingly. And so with that being said, with the tragic death, and by death, I will just be honest, murder of George Floyd, it has caused a huge rise in the way we have begun to view these social and hitting racial issues, injustice, police brutality, and there's so many different things that has come rising amongst a lot of you, whether you're Black, white, Asian, Indian, Hispanic, wherever you may be in your race. We've all, in some sense, have been drawn to this major situation that has always been there and always been in the news, but not necessarily maybe to the level that it is now. What I want to say, and I wrote, and I don't want to spend too much time on it today, but if you are interested, feel free to reach out to me. My email is george@thegeorgerogers.com. But I wrote, and it's on my social media as well as LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, so you can follow me on any of those platforms as well. But I recently sent out what I at first wrote out for my close family and friends. After many conversations and a lot of frustration with posts, with not being necessarily genuine, but sometimes not realizing the small things that we say have huge impact. My heart has been broken. My heart has been heavily burdened by this, because I know there are so many great men and women of the white race that have been dear to my heart, that has been a huge impact in my life. And they found themselves in a place of confusion. They found themselves trying to understand what in the back of my mind has become normal to me, and I expect certain things. And many Black men and women the same way have dealt with some of these issues. And that comes to me writing 7 things that my white family and friends can start doing, as well as 7 things that my white family and friends can stop doing. And so I wrote this, and if you're interested in it, please reach out, or you can just search my social media, and you can find them on those platforms as well. And the reason why I wrote this is because there's so many different groups, and you say, George, you say peaceful protesting, but there's many cities that buildings are being destroyed and businesses have been looted. And so how can it be peaceful protesting? I do want to identify that I believe without a shadow of a doubt, there's 2 different groups. There are people like myself who taken part of some peace protests here in Georgia, in the North Atlanta area, that are doing things the right way for the right purpose. And it's not necessarily just for Mr. George Floyd and what happened to him. That was what I believe kind of the tip of the iceberg. It's something that's been constantly happening over and over again. And there's been a cry and there's been protests. There's been protests in forms of kneeling. There's many of those things that become an issue. And there's one word that stuck with me in a conversation, and the reason why I want to bring this up, obviously, is because it is dear to my heart, but also to raise awareness on one key word that I really want to talk about today, amongst a lot of other things. But one of the most important things I really want to talk about today, when it comes to being the change, when I think about those three words, and I've been saying and challenging people to be the change for about 8+ years now. And my heart behind being the change that we want to see in the world, be the change in your generation, be the change in your race, be the change in your workplace, be the change in your marriage, your relationship, your friendships, wherever it may be or what it may be for you. I challenge people all the time to be the change. And what I simply mean by that is, what are you going to do today to impact those around you? Not just verbally, but with your actions. And so that challenge has been something that stuck with me. And so today, my challenge when it comes to being the change, really the root of change is really connected to who you are, who I am. And so I want you to ask this question to yourself. And then as I'm asking it, think about your answer right away, what it is now. Then I want you to do some homework. I know you got plenty of things to go on your day, but I want to challenge you to think about this even furthermore and say, you know what truly is my identity? And so the question today is, who are you? Right? This can be personal. We can talk about this subject in the business place and in the workplace. And if you are in some form of leadership and influence, and you have a position where you're leading a group or a team of teammates or employees, if that's the word you like to use, ask yourself that one question: inwardly, who am I? And maybe outwardly, who are we? Who are we as a business, as a company, right? Because when these situations, and by these situations, when we deal with COVID-19s and we deal with tragic losses, and we deal with peaceful protesters to rise and create change for those things that are needing change in this world, the identity of who we are always rises. As a company, I saw many companies, and I shared several statistics about COVID-19 and the impact. I spoke at a wonderful conference, a virtual conference, just last week, and I want to give a shout out to Ben Eubanks there in Huntsville, Alabama, a phenomenal, one of my favorite speaking engagements that I've ever been a part of. Virtually, it was just incredible, phenomenal speakers, wonderful group, and men and women in the HR field that bless my heart. I am truly humbled. I was honored. I'm grateful to have been a small part, to be able to share my passion through my partnership with Culture of Good and my mentor, Ryan McCarty. And one of the things that I talked about, and I want to really kind of build this up for everybody, behind that word identity. Because for me, in this world, what I see is a true reflection of who we are as a country. Many of us are lost. Many of us are dealing with uncertainty. Many of our communities are wondering, what do we do? What do we say? How do we do what we need to do? And how do we educate ourselves on some of these matters? And the root of everything that I believe, especially as we go back to COVID-19, is when companies are scrambling in the midst of the chaos and uncertainty that comes out of nowhere, who you are is revealed, right? It's who you are is revealed through those oppositions and opportunities. And I believe we as leaders have to really embody and have to really be in position to make sure that we understand who we are. And so when I was talking at this HR summer school, I talked about several things, and the keynote was on bringing your soul to work. And it's one of my favorite things I love to talk about, because I believe it's important for George to just be George no matter where he goes. And one of the important things of that keynote that I talked about is leadership. Now, for me, you say, George, what is leadership? I believe leadership is simply an example of love. It's an example of grace. It's an example of trust. And that forms into the most powerful thing that we can do as leaders and we have as leaders, and that's influence. Leadership is simply influencing people. True leadership and how we influence people should always be through the example of love, grace, and trust. Loving people despite where they are, growing them in that place, showing them grace when they make mistakes and they're not doing their jobs to the level that you expect them to do, trusting them that they're going to get better, trusting them that they're going to rise above, trusting them that they're going to give their all when they're working at home and you can't have your eyes on them to make sure that they're doing the job the way they should be doing it. And so leadership really is formed in love, grace, and trust. And we must exemplify those things as leaders. But we have to be able to understand that it has to be in us. It's got to be a part of our identity. I was reading something. This is your fact of the day to kind of break the ice here. But I was reading, and I like to give a fact every time I'm on here. So the fact that I have found out that I find pretty interesting, especially as we are a driven social media world, Facebook has more users than the population of the United States, China, and Brazil combined. Facebook, one platform, has the more users than US, China, and Brazil combined. And and so you understanding I am amongst a number of those that are part of this. And in fact, 2 billion active users have an account on social media platform, which is more than the population of the United States, China, and Brazil. So over 2 billion people are part of the network that is Facebook. And I say all that to say this is that when I am on social media and I see a lot of different things and posts and conversations, and it's not just Facebook in general, but other platforms as well, there's a sense of lost connection and identity in our country, in our leadership. And the challenge there is really understanding that the highest call of leadership, the most important call of leadership, is to first lead yourself. How can I lead you? How can I impact you? How can I change your life? How can I change your direction? Is it possible? The answer is yes. But how can I truly influence you and give you that love if I don't love myself? How can I show you grace and give you grace if I first don't give grace to myself? How can I trust you if I barely trust myself? And so understanding that what identity is and what it truly means as a way to define ourselves, this really includes our values. It's our beliefs, it's our personality, and understanding those things is so valuable because you as a company, and let's think about this as a business, for many of you who are in the workplace right now, and many of you are leaders, think about this in the form of your company's identity. No matter how world changing your mission is, you can have the greatest mission statement. You can have all these workable strategies and great things, but if you don't have that the identity that is needed, your workable strategies is all you have, and that is just an ideal, not an identity. So you must have an identity uh, in place that is going to complete and connect your mission, and really helps your workable strategies be more than an idea. And that's so important to really make sure you grasp is saying, where's our company at? Where am I at as a person, number one? And then once I understand my identity and where I am and who I am, then I can then be a part of something greater. I can be a part of this company and this company's identity and who we want to be. And so asking yourself, what do we do? Who are we? What is our purpose? Because a lot of companies and even in life, we know what we do. But the question is, do you know why you do it? And if you don't have a clue why you do something, you're disconnecting on the identity. And it's important that you understand who you are. And that's so valuable. Do me a favor, when you get to a computer, just go through your social media and look at several different people down your news feed, and you'll see a lot of things that are connecting. You can tell almost those people who struggle with who they are. They're searching, they're changing, a lot of different things, and there's no stability, right? And so I want to give you just a few things that I believe that is important um, to really confirm who you are and to really find your sense of identity, because when you lack certain things in your life, it influences your identity. So the number one thing that I have found out in forms of identifying that nature of a lack, right? So I'm speaking now firmly on lacking identity and ways to sense that area. So if you say, George, does my company lack identity? Then you must say, how do we handle these situations, or are we dealing with these certain situations? The first thing, and the first, let's call it condition, right? The first condition that you can see when somebody lacks identity, whether it's a person or a company, is you'll see a change of environment. You change with your environment. And what I mean by this from a personal standpoint, if you were to go around your family, you act a certain way, you talk a certain way. If you're with your group of friends, your identity becomes what they are, and you act and talk a different way as to the others at your workplace. And so, depending on where you are, if you're at work at one job and everyone else is studious and very silent, and everybody's to yourself, you'll be studious and quiet and silent and to yourself. If you go to your friends and they're very chatty and upbeat, you become very chatty and upbeat. And so you essentially form and conform to your environment. When you know who you are, you don't conform to anything. If anything, you transform. You are who you are. It's in you. And so being careful and understanding, listen, if I find myself conforming to my environment, do I truly know who I am? Because I am George. I'm the same, no matter who I am with. There are some moments where I am, believe it or not, an introvert, and people say, "There's no way." Trust me, there is a way to be an introvert in my shoes. Around different things, I like to listen when I'm in new environments. I am very quiet. I like to observe different things that's going on around me, and so my identity doesn't necessarily conform to my environment. I listen, I observe, and then it's all doors open, hell's breaking loose. You get George once I understand where I am and I trust those who are around me. So there's a difference between holding back because of uncertain characteristics and people around you. For instance, my family knows a lot more craziness and embarrassing moments than anybody ever will, that I won't display necessarily all the time in the workplace. But there's some goofiness that you may experience with me through conversation or hangouts or whatnot. But really, when you have an identity, your environment doesn't change you. You change the environment. And that should be the influence. That's where the influence of who you are comes through. The second thing, second condition, is relationships mold you. Relationships mold you, and you can see this. And I'm not just talking about a significant other, husband and wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, if we still use those words, I'm not sure. But just relationships in general. Not only are you likely to sort who feels entirely impact you, and how the relationship may flow when you do get into a friendship or relationship. Your hobbies change and your appearance change to match those around you. And so really, a loss of identity is really a connection of a sense of really wanting to belong. And that's kind of the root of why it is important to have identity at the workplace, You want to have an identity as a company where this is a place where people can belong. No matter your economic status, no matter how much money you have in the bank, no matter your race, your color, what you have or don't have, what you need, don't need, none of that matters when you have identity. All that matters is that this is a place that all belong to. As an identity as a man, I know who I am. I know whose I am. And so relationships necessarily won't mold me in a sense of conforming. Now, they may help me grow. I have great mentors in my life and people that I look up to that do mold my life, but I'm not conformed by every relationship that I am in. You have to understand there's got to be you have to have a small circle of people that you allow to change and impact your life, because not everybody that's around you is speaking and being life to you. Some people, believe it or not, are in your life specifically to challenge you. You know, I have 3 people in my life, and I have family, I have friends, and I have vegetables. And when I always use the word, because I don't like to use the word enemies. And so people say, George, what the heck is a vegetable? What do you mean you got vegetables in your life? Vegetables, those are the things that when I was growing up, I used to strongly love. I used to have I used to eat really good and healthy. And as I got older, I got really, really picky. And then in 2013, I got really, really healthy again. 2013, 2014, started eating right. So for health reasons, um, and I realized, man, I just like these vegetables. There's people that remind me of asparagus, and now asparagus is one of my favorite vegetables now, and I love my vegetables now. But in the beginning, they were things that I just strongly dislike. I try to avoid. Those vegetables are quote unquote what I refer to as enemies. It's the things that you need in your life to make you stronger. It sometimes doesn't always taste good, is not good to have around, or you wish you could rather not be around them or have that in your life, but it helps make you stronger, and it helps build you up. And so enemies in your life, opposition, is made to make you, is in your life to make you stronger. So I relate vegetables in my life to enemies, because my enemies, they don't kill me. They make me stronger. They keep me healthy. They keep me on my toes. They keep me motivated. And so that's the connection between vegetables. And so I have family, I got friends, and I got vegetables that make me stronger in my life. And every one of these 3 examples, the friends, family, and vegetables, they influence my life, but they don't mold my life. Molding me and molding you should be an honor. It should be a privilege to have somebody in your life that helps mold you to be the man or the woman that you want to be. Those are handpicked. But when you don't have identity in your life, anyone who becomes in part of your life is a friend or in a relationship begin to mold. And so when you lack identity, relationships easily mold you. Another thing that I believe that is a condition of someone who lacks identity is that you often have radical shifts. And by radical shifts, I mean political, religious, emotional, mental shifts that go along with opinions of others or the culture that is going around you. It's a fashion trend that may come in. You adapt to everything because, again, when you lack identity, you lack a sense of belonging, and it is in us to be connected. We were all created to be connected. No man or woman was created on this earth to be alone. And I know that's some biblical background stuff. And for those who believe, the power of that connection. If you don't believe in the Bible, and so be it, if that's the case, but I do believe in it. And one of my foundational truths, and I believe it, is that we were all meant to connect. We were all meant to connect to something. And so it is important to know who you are, because if not, you will be shifted by every wind, by every culture, by every belief that may come your way, and easily influenced until you figure out, who am I? And so you have this condition to connect and to belong, and you do so by accepting truths and sometimes lies from others, because at that moment of your life, you're just searching to connect because you truly don't know who you are. As a company, you're trying to figure out what you want to do. You see another company doing something, so you add it to your company. You got a competitor in the industry, right? And they're doing something. They're adding new products, or they're adding new services, and they're adding new team members, and you're wanting to catch up and be a part of the movement. And so you're doing the same thing. All along, you have no clue why they're doing what they're doing. And when you don't know why, and you're just adding things because you want to be a part of the movement and not left behind, you got to know why. Because if you don't know why, you can never discipline, you can never hold accountable, you can never uphold the structure that your team is going to require from you as an owner, operator, and a leader to understand why they're doing, being, speaking, or selling what you're adding to it. There's got to be a why, and the why is always connected to the identity, what we do, why we do. And so the next condition is when you don't know who you are, one of the tough questions is at talking about yourself. When people struggle with identity, they don't want to be asked, tell me about yourself. Because it makes you uncomfortable when people ask too many questions about who you are. It's perhaps, it's that develop good tactics for avoiding this, like changing the subject, right? Or turning the question around to another person, only to agree with what they said. That's pretty much, what I am. What do you think about me as a person? Who would you say I am? Right, that flipping the question to answer the question mentality, because when you don't have a clue who you are, you're hoping that somebody can speak that into existence for you to cling on to, and that's sad and very tragic in a sense, because when you lack that identity and you don't understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, then you find yourself doing the right thing for the wrong reason. And you have to be careful. Listen to me, you have to be careful doing the right thing for the wrong reason. And what I mean by that is when you have no identity, sometimes we would do things that are good, and we would do good in the world, all for the wrong purpose, not understanding the why. What we do is right. Why do we do that? For instance, as we're going through this injustice battle that's kind of fighting hand in hand with racial injustice as well, we find all these different things. And so many people are wanting to say the right things and do the right things, but are you doing it for the right reason? Are you doing it because you want your company to be in the front and say, listen, we're with this movement? Are you doing it because you're saying, I love all people, and I truly do love all people, and I want to be part of understanding and making a change? Or are you doing it for the wrong reason? Don't want to lose customers, don't want to disconnect from our Black employees, don't want to be left behind or not a part of this movement. And so I feel obligated because other companies are doing this, and other people are speaking about this. And so I want to be a part of it because it's the right thing to do. That, my friend, is the wrong reason to do it. The right reason and the right thing is always a heart thing. I love people. I love white people. I love Hispanic people. I love Asian people. I love Indian people. I love my Black people. And the right thing to do, the right reason, is because of identity in their heart. And so I want to challenge you today to really do a couple of things as a person. Soul search. And by soul searching, I simply just mean this. Listen, you have to figure out who you are. And once you figure out who you are, then you can understand the direction and your purpose and impact in life, and have a vision, right? To see that come to pass. When you don't have an identity, your vision, seeing clearly, is going to be difficult. Vision is this. Listen, vision is not predicting the future. No one can do that. Contrary to popular belief, nobody can predict the future. Vision is the ability to see an opportunity around you now and jump on it. That's vision. It's that taking that dream and kissing it with action, right? Vision without action is just a dream. Action without vision is a nightmare. Vision without a plan is an illusion, right? And so that identity of who you are becomes part of that dream. It becomes part of that vision. It becomes part of who you are as a person. And I believe today more than ever, we, the people in this world, we need people who understand who they are. We need people with identity. We need people with certainty and stability. We need people who understand what love is, what grace is, what trust is. We need that influence to rise today in this world for our generation and the next generation. Listen, as adults, we have to take responsibility that we've not done good enough, right? We've not done good enough, but we can be the impact. We can be the change and embrace change, not for the sake of change, but for the sake of your purpose, your identity. We can be the change for the next generation and really bring that impact to them through true leadership, which is love, grace, and trust. And so I want to thank you today for giving me this time and this moment to be a part of your drive, your workplace, wherever you may be. I want to thank you for allowing me to be in your presence and really speak this dear thing that I'm so passionate about, and that is leadership, that is culture. But inside of all this are different really ingredients to what it takes to have a great and be a great leader and have a great culture. And so I want to thank you for your time, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. If you have questions, please drop the questions and comments, like, share, spread this around. If you know somebody that's struggling with their identity, help them get their identity by simply impacting their life and bringing forth the change that is needed by really challenging them to find out who they are and what they want to be in their life, and giving them that stability and that challenge to really view things from a different perspective. And I'll leave you with this: how you view things will determine how you do things. Be the change.